Make a start. Yeah, that's it. Done. Okay, welcome everybody. This Scrutiny Committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council Standing Orders. Council Standing Orders and Code of Conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request. Images and sound recordings may also be used for training purposes. I'm happy for members to keep their cameras on if they would like to, and then just signal to me if you wish to speak. You could mute your chat function until you speak. Thank you. Okay, any apologies for absence? I think we've got a few today.
Councillor Cleverly and Councillor Thomas, Chair.
All noted. Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest at this stage?
South of Fire Service.
Yeah, Councillor Pym, for the Fire Service, and if that's in relation to the Fire Service. Any other declarations of interest from any other members? Okay. So we're moving on to the 2025-26 budget and medium-term financial projections. Members will recall our meeting last Thursday, if I've got the days right, where we started on this. So it's a continuation of that meeting in terms of service areas. So we looked at 4 service areas last time, and we're looking at 3 service areas this time. At the start of the last meeting, Myrian, the head of finance, gave an overview to members of the current position with the council's medium-term budget. So I'm not going to ask Myrian to repeat himself on that. All members have heard it, and if any members of the public are just watching this meeting today, they can go back and view that part of the meeting to see the overview again. So we're going to jump into each service area, and we're starting off with the finance service area, if that's okay. And that is your area, Myrian. Obviously, no need to repeat what you sort of gave in terms of the overview last week, but if we could run through and give a quick overview of the budget savings and the pressures, and then we'll open it to the committee for any questions or queries, if that's okay.
Thanks, Chair, and apologies that I can't be there with you in person. But in terms of next year's budget, as regards finance, relatively quiet in terms of budget investments and savings. We've got a budget investment of 106,000 into the revenues and benefits area, and that is to deal with a significant reduction in the DWP grants that they pay us for the administration of benefits. That's been decreasing for a number of years now, and it's cumulatively it's reached a point where it's about 60,000 or so adrift from the budget. So we do need to correct that now, because it's not, we can't cover that now. So that's a fairly straightforward reduction in government grants that we have to rectify in the budget. And then secondly, mainly postages. We don't obviously pay as much in postage as we do as individuals, but the cost of postages has gone up significantly in the last 2 or 3 years. And if we have email addresses and people have got an account with us on MCS, we do try and communicate with people electronically, but the majority of the communication is still done by post, and there's a lot of communication, not just the billing initially, but then various debt collection processes that requires us to get in touch with people, and there are some communication which has to be done via the post. It can't be electronic. So we've seen a massive increase in the cost of our postages budgets, not just now, but again building up over the last 2 or 3 years in particular. So that 106,000 is there to deal with those two things really: reduction in government grants and an increase in the council's postage costs. We will continue to try to move people onto online billing and communication. We've already started that. We've been doing that for the last couple of years now, you know, but clearly there's a lot more to sort of do and get people signed up if we want to make a dent in the number of, you know, letters, etc., communications that we send out. That's the investment. In terms of the savings, two savings that we were consulting with the public. One is around self-service and automated processes in the Revs and Bens team, which amounts to 3 posts. So there are sort of 3, I suppose, automation projects. One is around how we deal with incoming emails. It is quite an admin process to allocate those into colleagues' work trays, etc., to deal with those. Actually, there is a project that hasn't actually finished yet, but which will eventually see us automating that process. And that has required us to change the way that people communicate with us as well, so that we get some essential information off people, and that will enable that to happen electronically, but also to get it to the right colleague to deal with that matter as well. Another thing that we've done is to use self-service capacity within the systems that we use. So our HB and revenues system has got a degree of self-service, and we've essentially invested both money and time to get that capacity, and that's in the areas of making arrangements to pay debt, and also 1 or 2 of our easier transactional services can now be done by residents themselves, as opposed to having to get in touch with us and us do it. And also there's an element of when people are applying for universal credits, there's now a more kind of seamless process for that to also be turned into a council tax reduction application as well, in the easiest cases. So where that's the case, again, that's now electronically organized as opposed to a more manual system. So that's enabled us to offer up 3 posts there at a cost saving of £106,000. No impact. No impact, I think, on the quality of service, but yes, you know, I would. It is a movement to self-service and electronic self service, and we do appreciate that not everybody is as comfortable with that as kind of others, but it is the direction of travel that we are moving into. But clearly, anybody that can't engage in those things can still do it in the way that it has always been done. We haven't switched off that channel. And the second saving, which we're consulting on with the public, is in the customer services area. At the moment, we have about 100 sort of forms or so, which we are able to facilitate and help residents fill in. Now, these forms are used for all sorts of things: requesting a service, asking questions, etc., etc., applying for things. They're used in nearly all of the council services. The customer services department does act like a bit of a post box for sort of those, but also helps residents fill those in in as well. So this saving is linked to stopping that, and actually, residents will be able to access these forms electronically on the council's website. They can print them off, fill them in and send us to us, or they can fill them in and send them back electronically. And again, they'll be sent to the appropriate council departments to either answer a query or to, deliver a service, whatever that kind of request is. So nothing is changing in terms of being able to be able to get things done, but clearly, again, that communication and moving us to an electronic way of doing things is the theme there. Those were the two savings that we're consulting on with the public. There is also a third saving, which I'm taking under delegated authority. It has no impact on kind of anything. So, Chair, I'm happy to answer questions on that one if anybody wants to, but I think we should probably focus on the two that we're consulting on. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Mary. Appreciate that. Reese, I apologise. I didn't give you an opportunity to say anything in advance of that. So, sort of thinking, hopefully we didn't. But I don't know if you want to add anything there or whether you're happy. That's fab. I'll open the floor to committee. Councillor Rees.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thanks, Marion. Picking up on the smaller budget saving first, if I can. I appreciate you say obviously the direction of travel that people at City Council want to go in is through more digitalisation, and yeah, we know we live in a changing world and we have to all adapt. So we know that the savings in terms of cost and time, etc. But there's still a proportion of the population out there in Newport that can't access for one reason or another. So by doing what you're suggesting here, in my opinion, of stopping all of these forms, then you are cutting off a certain amount of the population. As a suggestion, the halfway house, is there a way of advising the public that if they want these forms, they can go to, say, the information centre or the central library, where the staff there would download and print the forms for those residents then to take away?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, it was remiss of me not to mention that is actually happening. So there will be, a number of copies of each of these forms at the face-to-face centre down at the library, and obviously anybody can pop in there and ask what they want. They'll be given the appropriate form. They can fill it in and send it in as they need to. They can do it there and then if they want to as well. And obviously the colleagues working there will be able to provide a bit of advice as well on that. So that's already, that will be happening.
Can possibly this be rewritten slightly then to include that? Because if a member of the public reads this consultation as it is, they will just think there are no forms not available, full stop.
Yep, that's I'll take a look at that, and we will update that. Yeah.
I said, no, it's a small point, but we don't want to alienate a percentage of our population that either cannot or does not have the ability to get these forms.
Yeah, no, I'll update the proposal, and I'll just check the impact assessments just to make sure that we've mentioned it in there as well. I think we have in there, but I will just sort of check and update everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Mario. Councillor Pitcher,
I'm just following up on what Councillor Rees said. Have we got a list of where these forms can be accessed at the moment? I know you mentioned the information centre. Are they? I know with the change in status of some of the libraries being closed, I know previously you could go to the library for such information. Have we got a list of where we could have, members of the public could access these forms, and how is that advertised to the public?
So I think currently they are at the library as well. They are there now in sort of hard copies. People can pick them up there, and people can ring the contact centre, and then they will organise the printing and the sending off of these various forms. I am not too sure if they are on our websites already. I think they are. All we're doing here is all we're proposing here is that we're switching off the ability for you to sort of get in touch with the contact center and for them to sort of organize the sending to you of these forms. So I think that
Well, I appreciate that, sorry, Marion, but I think that what can happen, it does often happen, is a decision is made, but then where the public can access these forms, that's the difficult part. That's when they got to get on the phone to the contact centre or waste the journey to a local library, and it doesn't provide that service. So I think if there was a list available,
Okay.
then we could advertise that list of all the services that are available, because as we know, we're discussing the change in states of the library. Some are closing, some are providing different services. And so if the staff at these buildings knew what people might contact them for and what was available, and even advertising that possibly outside, notice boards. Again, it's taking a step back. Hopefully take a few steps forward, but I think we can rush the public into this and we can cause more problems in the short term.
Yeah, I'll speak to the customer services manager and I'll see if we've got that list already. But if we haven't, we'll get one done. It'll be on the and we'll make sure that we put it onto the websites, etc., so that we're very clear. So people are very clear where they can get these things from.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions for Myron? Yeah, Councillor Rees, please.
Byron, if you can pick up on the your efficiency savings of the 106,000, where obviously you've got redundancy costs of 75,000. Because you've got to look at the burning question: are we able to redeploy these staff? Are we able to retrain them into other areas? Customer services, for example, are we able to move them around rather than just we're cutting off the
Yes, so that will happen for all staffing affected in all departments by all saving proposals. Our HR colleagues will obviously run a redeployment process. So that's standard procedure, and that will be happening. Yeah.
So is that 75,000 then a worst case scenario?
Yeah, it is. It is. So that's based on the fact that those posts, filled posts, are made redundant. But clearly, if they were to be redeployed, then there would be no cost, and and that's what I mean. That would be a success, of course. Yeah.
Question on the same point for me, Myron. Is the loss of 3 points, so like football analogy, loss of 3 posts, the right thing to do in a revenue and benefits section, which is struggling to answer the phone in a timely manner and deal with customer queries? That seems to be, and I appreciate that will be probably in a different part of that department, but should we be not looking to get this saving now and actually sort of ensuring we've got enough people to improve service delivery first and then look to cut back?
So it would be great to put those 3 into customer services contact center, but of course I would need a budget in order to pay for them. That's the issue here. I think that I not just me here, but I'm sure most of my heads of service colleagues could think of other pressure points within their services where people could be redeployed to, but of course you do need to be able to pay for them and to have the budget. So the budget just doesn't exist for me to redeploy those 3 to other areas. But
I'm talking about the same area really, because these people are in revenue and benefits, aren't they? And that's where most of our problems are with answering the council tax line, which is sort of average sort of 23 minutes or whatever it was, and we had the figures of that's where the pressure is on the system, isn't it? In terms of sort of those council taxes, you think that did we ought to be not saving what worst case scenario might only be 30 grand, and should we be improving customer service delivery first and then looking at those savings next year?
Yeah, I mean, we would need to invest though in those services to be able to have the posts available to move those people into, and we don't have that.
It's not an investment, is it? We just don't realise the saving. Because those posts are already here, aren't they? So it's not an additional investment. We're not realising the saving.
No. Once once the cabinet and the council have approved the budget, that 106,000 is removed from my budget. So therefore, I need to remove the cost from my
But they
budget.
haven't approved the budget yet, have they?
Yeah.
No, they haven't, and therefore, it's perfectly within the rights of this committee to feed back, to the cabinet in this vein, if that is what you wish.
Yeah. I'm right.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. That's what I was going to say. If the committee wants to make a recommendation that, rather than taking the saving, take the efficiencies and actually move the resource in order to relieve it, then that's really a gift to the committee to make that recommendation.
Yeah.
If the cabinet to consider, and then council will consider it when it goes before council. Obviously, from a service area point of view, we previously came up with the committee, Myron did talk about things that were taking place already to alleviate some of the pressures on the council tax helpline, particularly.
Yeah.
And and we've talked also this is part of that journey. The more what's recognised, and some people will really struggle with online facilities and automation. Actually, the more people who can do that and get doing that and self-service, actually the quicker it will be for us to deal with people who can't. Because actually you're moving all that. You're not using resource to deal with the things that you don't need to deal with. So I think there's a balance in all. Trying to be efficient, but also delivering a quality service as well.
Yeah, and I take on board the kind of digital points and the kind of need for that. But you've summed up what I'm trying to say really well, actually.
So Chair,
make the efficiencies, but reuse somebody else. Sorry, Mary. Go on.
No, the committee might be interested to sort of know, because it does tie in with what you're saying there, Chair. We are transferring the call handling for council tax inquiries from the contact centre into the council tax team by the end of March, and I think that probably ties in with what you're saying there, about we will still make these efficiencies in the council tax team. If there wasn't a saving attached to it, obviously we could then deploy them onto the council tax inquiries phone line, for example. Now that is transferring into the revenue team by the end of March. So I think that probably that's something that I think the committee just needs to know, because I think it probably ties in with what you're saying there. Obviously, it's for you to make any observations to the cabinet. It's for cabinets to consider it ultimately.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful for that. Thank you very much. One other question: is the sort of the 206,000 figures a coincidence then, or have you sort of looked for 106,000 because there's a 106,000 pressure?
They were separate. I mean, I know it sounds like a that they were matched, as it were. I mean, when we were talking about our precious sort of savings, I was keen to ensure that we didn't, as best we could, did not put an overall net pressure on the council's budget process, because that's a real challenge for the council. It's about how do you fund all the various budget issues across the council. So actually, when myself and the Revs and Bens manager were talking about this kind of shortfall and the savings, whilst we didn't work to an absolute it must be the same, we were conscious that we didn't want to sort of create a problem if we could help it. And as it happens, the figures came pretty much pretty much the sort of same. So no, it didn't, but we were very conscious that we should try and not have a net pressure if at all possible, and we were able to achieve that.
Thanks. Any other questions for Marion in terms of the finance? And you did say you were picking up the questions on the sort of non-service stuff as well, Marion, did you?
Well, there's one saving that is not being consulted on, but you know that's just a very small £14,000 saving, efficiency saving. So I mean, you know, I'm happy to talk about this if the committee wants to, but you know, it's up to you.
Yeah, and there were two other things in terms of the consultation: the transfer of the fire service pay grant into RSG, and annual sums budget required to fund capital expenditure on a recurring basis.
Yeah.
Are you picking up them too, Marion, as well?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, absolutely. So, members might remember that this time last year, both teachers and firefighters' pensions costs were going up. Welsh governments were going to provide funding to cover those. They didn't get those into the budgets by the end of March, but they promised that they would give us the money at some point within the 24-25 financial year. So that money came to us in the autumn. So essentially, that's just whenever a specific grant transfers into the settlement, etc., that this is kind of the same thing. We need to put a budget pressure in there so that the money ends up in the right place. So that was just a bit of budget housekeeping there, making sure that budget is there now and picking up that increased cost. And then the second one was the £500,000 on the capital financing budget. So we have annual sums in our capital program. These are capital budgets, but actually we incur them every single year, which is very different to what you traditionally think of as capital budgets. They just arise, you know, as and when they do, and then once they're done, they're done. Well, these annual sums are things like vehicle replacements, disabled facilities grants, etc. These things we incur every single year. We fund all these from the capital grants that we receive from the Welsh Government, which means that there's no cost to the council in incurring these annually. That capital grant has been going down over the years, and also we've had to sort of increase the budgets on these annual sums as well to meet increasing costs and demand in some areas, the disabled facilities grants in particular, and that has therefore necessitated we've had to put in more of our own money into it, not just the Welsh Government's general capital grant. And that 500,000 is just that. It's additional funding from the council just to top up the Welsh Government's funds that then pays for the annual sums.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Rees?
No, covered it.
Yeah, that's right. We had some, I think Councillor Rees had a question on that point, but your introductions probably answered it. So,
Absolutely.
any other questions for the committee for Marion? Any members online, any questions for Marion? Alex, you sort of had a couple, didn't you, on finance?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Hi, Marianne. It's nothing related to any specific cuts. It was more to do with the civic centre and the revenue it generates each year. In the report, we got the price lists of what we charge. What do we actually earn from the civic centre annually?
So I haven't got that figure to hand. My colleague Tracy, I can see is in the room, and Tracy runs the property department, which includes the civic.
Yeah.
She may know, and if we don't, we'll have to get you the figure.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that.
I think comes under law and standards in terms of the consultation, because that's the bit where the fees are increased. But I don't know whether Mike either will have that data, so it might be something you could follow up to community, unless you know off the
It
top
is,
of your
but
head.
what I can tell you, it's very small amounts.
We thought it might be.
Very, very small
Yeah.
amounts. Partly to do with many things, including the limitations of the building as it stands currently. But I can find the exact figure, but it's also.
I think it was.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you.
The second question when comes up in was percentage of what, you know, so if you're kind of increasing or not increasing the fees, or, you know, how much does 10% look like? You know, 10% and I think nothing in it. So, so yeah, it's a good point. So it'd be useful if you could share it after. Councillor Green?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, in a similar vein to Councillor Pym made about income from the civic centre, but what about income from other council activities that we're involved in? You know, are there is that income has our income gone up and made a greater contribution to you know, to the finance, or what else is being done to try and generate extra income?
So,
You know,
yeah,
sorry.
I mean, I could answer this in general terms. Colleagues may want to add to what I say. So, I mean, the council generates a substantial amount of external income from fees and charges. You know, I don't know, planning fees, various environmental health sort of charges related to our refuse and recycling activities. These fees and charges exist across nearly all services. I'd have to confirm to you what the figure in total is across the council, but yeah, we increase those fees annually, and also some services will then, you know, consistently, and then some services will increase them by even more for different reasons, and there are a number of budget proposals across the whole budget where that is happening this year as well. But you know, the figures quite substantial in total.
Okay, yeah, I'm just wondering whether, you know, I'm thinking more in terms of use of council facilities, such as council-owned buildings or properties or whatever,
Okay.
rather than just sort of parking or recycling charges.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I
We'd
know
have
it's
to, as Tracy said, and I
yeah.
and I agreed. At the Civic, it's incredibly small, and I'm going to probably stick my neck out here and say it'll be quite small elsewhere as well. So we do hire out our community centres, etc. They're also small. That's going to be a you know, a reasonable income source in terms of buildings, as it were. But it's not big. It's not big. So it's not a big issue. Our main income, fees and charges, comes from other activities which you've mentioned. Yeah,
I understand that, and obviously, you know, I suppose in a way, that's where we get the bulk of the income from. I was just wondering whether, you know, yeah, I appreciate it. It's going to be small fry in the scheme of things, isn't it? Really, you know. Okay, thanks very much. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Green. Reece, do you want to come in and then I'll bring you in?
Yeah, we're bleeding into Tracy's world. You know, we've got most of our council-based owned assets, most of the estate schools. Then you have corporate assets like this, but we do have commercial industrial estate, which is run on a commercial basis as well. So that generates more significantly. But all of the assets, well, you've also then got to take off all the running costs and maintenance costs associated with those. So as part of the asset management, the asset rationalisation program, what we're trying to do is look at the potential income associated with those assets, offset by maintenance costs, and also decarbonisation costs, because that's a big challenge for us over the next 5 years. So there's a balance of things here that we portfolio as well as the traditional.
Okay, thanks, Reece.
It may not be for the day, so apologies for sidelining us. There's an awful lot of filming, which is a good thing, right? City. I mean, we're on TV at the moment, we might films, TV drama. Have we got figures on how much money we generate in terms of income from the film that goes on within the city?
Well, filming across the city, unless there's a license required, because it's a council asset, it wouldn't be any income for us.
We don't charge the film.
Only if it's on our assets, there's a license fee associated. But we can't charge people for filming in the centre, for instance. We don't own it.
In public parks.
Public, yeah, but they're our assets, don't they? So there would be a licensing arrangement.
But we got a figure in terms of how much we generate.
We can get that. It's probably not a huge figure. We do have an income that we achieve for this civic centre. We have film crew this year, quite big productions. The recent War of the Wheels TV series was filmed extensively in this building.
Because Newport's featuring more and more on TV.
Quite a
Great
lot.
to see,
Yeah,
just must see. But it'd be interesting to find out how much we actually generate, even if it's from licenses.
Yeah.
Licenses, sorry.
I said the public parks and stuff like that. That's reasonably small fry, because again you've got to balance what's the actual cost balanced against the benefit of having Newport showcased on the program. So we don't want to put it off.
Great price, and the reason why they come in here.
But actually,
because
actually here, it's not insignificant. It helps with some of the maintenance costs.
I think we're probably straight a little bit off topic.
Just curiosity
Just
more than
exactly.
anything.
But there are always questions that can be sent into the relevant head of service or capital members. Yeah. Any other questions from Irene? Take silence as a no. Fantastic. Thanks for your time, Irene. I think that's done. We'll move on to people and policy and transformation. Do you want to wrap the recommendations up for this service area now, or should we do it? Yeah, we'll do one together. Fab. Okay. Over to you then, Tracy, if that's okay.
Savings and pressures.
Yes.
With small, okay, thanks. So the main saving in this act, we also have some delegated savings, I've shown in the first set. But the one for consultation in this act is the reduction of Newport matters, so using other methods to communicate with residents. For clarity, the saving is print costs and distribution costs. It's net of a small amount of income. We're just talking about income. We've worked quite hard on getting income in Newport matters, but there are some limitations in that. It's 69,000 copies currently sent to residential and business properties. Actually, the budget doesn't quite pay for all of the costs, but that is the budget that's available. And the proposal is that we could remove that and communicate with people in different ways, whether that be social media, online, through our internet site and similar. And obviously that's part of the public consultation. It'll be interesting to see what the public think about that.
Should we deal with that point first?
Okay, please, Chair.
Yes. Yeah.
One comment to make. I personally enjoy reading Newport matters. Well, I think it's very important for people across the city to get the information that they need throughout the year. I think more and more people potentially could be stepping back from social media over the next few years because of global issues and concerns that happen both in the UK and on the side of the ocean in America. So I think the way that we communicate with our residents is really important, and I think that we possibly need to rethink how we communicate with our residents. I would like to see Newport Matters improved if there's a possibility, or expanded. I think that there's opportunities for more ward-related issues not issues, but events and information covered in it. I'd rather see it improved than cut back. It is, and possibly using Newport Matters in more notice boards, more traditional forms of communication, where people, it could be in public parks, for example, the notice boards and then public parks are not used for anything. I mean, copies of Newport Matters could be advertised there for people to stop off and see. We could be, again, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, when you say commercial premises, whether they sent to cafes and restaurants, are they available there at front of the shop that people can pick the copy up as they go in? at the moment, or is it just through the
They're not,
poster?
and that would be an
residents?
additional cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Again-
is just like, only the reduced provision we've got at the moment is it's printed and it's sent to those households using a bulk mail. I mean, all of that's done really
Yeah.
efficiently, as you might imagine. It does get distributed in other ways.
Yeah, so-
there will be a cost.
Me personally, instead of cutting back on it, I would rather see it improved and expanded. But I know that comes with cost.
Anybody else? Councillor Rees?
If we just pick up what we say about cost, Tracy, would you mind just explaining? We've got a 40,000 saving, but it says you've got say cost savings ranging from saving of 40,000 to a pressure of 10,000. Can you just explain the 10,000, the inflation?
So currently, the actual costs of distributing to those households, that number per year has exceeded the budget. So it's 50k.
So we kept it in.
So currently we're absorbing something of the pressure in budgets there. So if we kept it in, the true figure we're absorbing is 50k. But the reduction in the budget is 40. So I don't appreciate that's complex, but it might mean that in future we'd have to put a pressure in because actually the budget doesn't quite meet it. So it's being transparent about that. And when it says ranges from, there have been suggestions previously about doing other things not as well as instead of. So there have been suggestions of not distributing it to households at all and putting it in some places. But that actually reduces the saving by more than half because you've still got the production costs and that element of it.
Yeah, the actual printing is actually a minor cost within.
That's right.
within.
Yeah, you've got the design, you've got the print, and then you've got currently the way it's posted, although that is done relatively efficiently. So if we didn't post it to households, that isn't the biggest part of the saving, if that makes sense. So that if there were other options, it would be somewhere in between 40k saving and a 10k.
So if this goes online, then as it were, would it go on as a download onto the website? So we'd still have the design costs. It would still be a certain amount of pressure, or is this to say Newport Matters? It finishes at in April 24, and I say we can see it.
I think our savings
25.
proposition is that I'm going to say the content that is in Newport Matters, that is slightly different, isn't it? Would go online. Could there be a downloadable copy? Possibly, and I think we could still make a significant amount of the saving then. It is largely the physical production and distribution that's in that. There'd probably be some small cost to absorb if we designed it as a magazine. The proposal is for it to be removed, but to ensure that content is available online and on our social media.
Councillor Matthew
Yeah.
Pym, and then I'll bring Councillor Alex in.
Sorry, I think there's pressures on all forms of media distribution at the moment, printing costs, etc. Would it be worth exploring either sponsorship or working with partners like the South Wales Argus and maybe combining the Newport Matters print within one of them, either monthly or 2 monthly copies, and everybody sharing the cost of the printing and the information and sending it out as maybe once every 2 months, everybody gets a copy of the Argus with Newport Matters is included in it. And so you're sharing the costings of both the distribution and the printing, or the possibilities of sponsorship and so forth. So I think the information that's in Newport Matters is very, very important. Not everybody has got access to the internet. Not everybody understands modern technology. And some people, like I said, are shying away from social media. And in doing so, they're probably not going to be on their devices or on the internet as much. And it might be one of those costs over the next few years that people are looking to cut back within their household. So I don't think it's a massive amount of money, in all honesty, in comparison to the other kind of budget pressures we got. But it is a conversation that is not new. It's been going on for a while, and I know that politically different parties have different views on it. So I would rather explore all options of where that saving could be made. But I personally would like to see Newport Matters improved and expanded. How we will do that, I don't know.
Okay, Councillor Alex Pym.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question regarding the consultation on Newport Matters. I'm worried that we're not going to get a true reflection. I think it's very well known that the older generation appreciate Newport Matters, and are they going to be able to feedback online through the consultation? Have we got any other means that we can get do the consultations on this matter?
The obvious place to consult would be in Newport Manors, wouldn't it? See, read them. But Tracy, I'll let you answer that. Sorry, I was slipping.
Listening.
That would skew the response that you have.
That's a good idea, Chair. Have we
Yeah.
done that though? Have we done that? Are we going to do that?
Is it in small print?
We have promoted the consultations. We've directed people where to go. Obviously, paper copies are available on request. I'm aware we're all also asking ward councillors if they need paper copies to distribute those, their award meetings and so on. We also work with a number of forums, younger people, older people, other groups of people, Newport's citizens panel, typically slightly older. So we do what we can to pick up all of those different parts of the population. But it is important that we see the consultation in that context, of course, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
One thing we haven't covered, there is a climate change element to this. So we have two sets of feedback. Some people love it and other people say they don't read it, and therefore there is a waste element. In terms of the sponsorship, if I could just go back to that, I heard all your points, but in the middle there was a question. In terms of the sponsorship and income, I'm not sure about the relationship with the Argos, I don't know, there's different messages in there, but one of the issues about sponsorship, doing it jointly and income, is which organisations want to use and sponsor and advertise. We need to be really closely aligned because they're all Newport City Council messages, aren't they? That's rather the whole point of it. And it is that alignment, and there's just some complexities.
No, I get
as you
that,
might imagine. If someone else is distributing their own material, they want it to be their material too. But we do, you'll notice, you've said you read it, it comes out in a bundle. So distribution wise, it comes out with stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of junk mail when it turns up,
bit,
which they can get
it all
lost.
pays. That bit, that bit I think is probably as low cost as you can get it, if I'm being honest.
Thanks, Tracy. I mean, this was a budget proposal from Lisbon Independent Group last year as part of the alternative budget, and our proposal at the time was to cut the issues by half, really. And I think it's a bi-monthly issue at the moment, and we would sort of propose to take it to 4 monthly, and the sort of costs worked out at the time was about a sort of £21,000 saving at that time, I think. So I'll be interested to see what the consultation says. I mean, my gut feeling on the climate change point that you made is really sort of prevalent, and this is paper going out there, hitting the doors, which ends up damaging the environment. I think there are ways to communicate, not just by social media, but by sort of people signing up to email lists as well. There'll be sort of CRM systems that you can use to generate a mailing list and sort of email people a digital way, and it almost ties into the communication strategy overall, doesn't it? One of my sort of fears is that in the past, and Councillor Pym commented on the pre-meeting actually, and I'll raise that if that's okay, because he said that he noticed an improvement in Newport Matters over the last few months. You didn't say it, so I thought
I was
ask
gonna-
a few. So that's a compliment, and I think that historically over the years, there's been a risk that it's been politically driven in terms of the messages in it, and I think that's improved more recently as well. So it's more about informing people about what's going on rather than sort of grandstanding, if you like. So I think that's all improved. So all that comment is really, really good. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence with it. I would be happy to see it cut, because my own personal view is I'd go and view that online. I do read it when it comes to the report, but if I had an email, I'd also read the email. But it's in my interest because I'm a councillor, so I'm interested to see what it means to people in the community. So I think my take would be we ought to listen very carefully to the responses on this particular issue and kind of take heed and form a strategy thereafter.
I did mention, I think the September and November issues are the best. I think the colour, the design, the information that was there was really helpful. It was a great advert for the city for November 1 with Wonderland, what was going on, where And as you're aware, I'm involved in a number of community groups and trying to communicate with local residents as to what's going on, when and where. It's really difficult, and I think we've over-relied on social media way too much, because when we do speak to people, they say, well, I either missed it because it got lost in the adverts and the junk that you get on social media, or people now are starting to steer away from social media. And even if we're not giving it to everybody, maybe there could be based on, you can sign up and request to have it, you can have it delivered for a year, and we'll contact you again at the end of the year and see if you still want it. But then get these copies out to places of interest where people may stumble across it if they're stopping off for a coffee, or if they're visiting the train station or the bus station. There could be kind of hard copies available in notice boards that they can scan over. Any way that we can communicate with local residents to get those important messages out is key to the service we provide. And secondly,
And then we come back or something, but it comes to the screen. Respond to anything yet?
No,
There's a
I-
question in there. I wrote some statements. Really.
No, I think we agree. At the end of the day, we're trying to do organisation. I think we're trying to balance the budget, which we're legally obliged to do. If this is a proposal, it would be really interesting to see what the public think.
Yeah.
I think the reason we consult is that actually when cabinet is considering a proposal and then presenting those to council as a budget to vote on, that actually it's got a basis of we have taken the on board it. We have always been able to maybe change tax as a result of that, but that's the really important thing. So it'll be interesting to see what comes back on this.
Yeah, Councillor Screen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the question of Newport Matters, I think it's a very useful publication, and there's two concerns I would have. One is that elderly people, many of them still don't go online. If we put it on social media online, then I suspect there'd be, a lot of elderly people wouldn't access it. And the second point is, if it went online, there's so much stuff on social media at the moment, would it get lost somewhere and people wouldn't bother to access it? Where if it comes through the door, it's in your hand, it's there. And I think it provides, quite, some useful information for residents. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Screen. Anything else anybody wants to add on the Newport Matters? Okay, we'll move on to, I think the budget pressures now, investments, Tracy, on three of those in there, the estate management, new compliance stuff, the civic centre, fire department inflation and asbestos stuff, they're all headed to the budget pressures and investments, and then there's the North building management and maintenance reduction fee.
Thanks, and there's a Welsh language one a little bit later.
Sorry, I'm just doing the top ones.
Okay. So typically, if you look at the council's budget, there's an overspend of about this amount every year on estate management. It's a corporate risk. It's on our corporate risk register that the age of the assets we have, the backlog maintenance is insufficient. Funding is insufficient to meet that. So some of this results from that. Some of it is that actually, despite rationalising, we still have new buildings, we will have new schools, we have new centres and so on. So in some ways, the estate does continue to grow in line with the growth of the population. We've also seen in the past couple of years increased compliance requirements, and they're listed there around the fire doors, asbestos and others. So we have to do regular surveys. And currently the way they present themselves in the budget is actually as an overspend. They have done, of course, their compliance, but they're an overspend or the budget is insufficient to meet. So that's rather collated there. There's then the consequence of some of those surveys. So there's both the work to do the surveys and then there's a moving programme of work around that, clearly with something about those things. The Norse building maintenance and management, we'll know about the Norse profit share, and that actually we're moving away from that model in the future and creating a new model. But for this year, we are unlikely to meet the levels of spend we have in the last few years to achieve that profit, which is a combination of it, largely not the change, although that might be a little bit relevant, but largely not as many really significant works from which a profit is generated. So that they,
When you say this year, do you mean this coming?
I mean, this coming
Yeah,
in the year we're
yeah.
talking about, sorry. Yeah. So we're anticipating that being reduced, but actually the year following, the whole budget would be remodelled around the new model. So, if again, you're transparent, so if one looks at the current spend in the budget, it doesn't always look this much, but there's some credits which I'm going to call windfalls, things like NFDR windfalls, but the true overspend in the budget is always in excess of 700. That was the assets and top quarter.
Yeah. Any questions from the committee on those three sort of asset elements?
It's just what was mentioned in the pre-meeting, I think you said it very well, Chair, if we scrutinise what services we use for these surveys. I know that, you know, the compliance needs to be met, surveys need to be done. I'm looking at two local schools, and if the costings to get their fire doors looked at, survey, then take place afterwards. Just a massive amount. The one was, I mean, small defects. They were suggesting the whole door needed to be changed. I know that there's legislation that needs to be met, but are we using one company? Is it being done via a third party? Are we in a position anytime soon in the future to start doing our own surveys and inspections?
Really good question. So actually the total pressure is more, and there's a mitigation in there for us taking it in-house into the model.
Brilliant.
So currently, yes, it is niche and specialist, and you know, limited supply base. So we are rather beholden to the market there. We costed at what it would cost, and it was much higher than this, but we're looking to remodel, bring it into a service. So the total is 100k or so more, but we put a saving against that because we'll bring it in-house in order to press that cost down.
No, it is, you know, it is. I've seen some of the quotes that we've had back, and you just look at this building as well. So back, it is niche and specialist and incredibly expensive, and you need to really. I'm not questioning the compliance regime, but it's obviously incredibly important, and you don't want a situation where we're grandfathers, etc. But you know, I would not underestimate the pressure is building on. I think both capital maintenance budgets and general, you know, service budgets within that assets as well, particularly in schools. It is a significant proportion of that capital maintenance budget now that's going on compliance is significant.
And when you say it's niche, I agree. It's just there's not many companies that provide that service, but it is not rocket science. It is looking at a door, and it's a basic test, but we have to do it. So if we can bring it in house, that'd be brilliant. And that could possibly be something if you've not considered already with the asbestos. So yeah, same thing. Yeah, great.
In terms of New Building Safety Act comes in to force, should have come in, it was slightly delayed going this year. So have we sort of thought about the additional expenditure that might bring in terms of sort of inspections and regimes, really? And the second question, you picked up a couple of times about the schools. This budget sort of involves compliance in schools, because I would have expected the schools to be looking after their own compliance and doing their own maintenance. Do we pay for that out of separate this budget then?
There's certain things schools pay for, and there's certain things we pay for
Right,
from the
okay.
centre, because then those things they're not budgeted for. I think I was there rather than try and explain something that I need to check on, but it's a mix.
Okay, yeah.
We have a mix across the school estates where schools will, you know, I suppose, obviously head teachers are responsible for. It's a corporate asset, it's our asset, and it's a corporate landlord policy in place to ensure the asset is maintained. schools have responsibility for that sort of general maintenance. The big ticket items, they're either picked up through the capital maintenance budget or through this specific schools capital maintenance grant that we have through from Welsh Government, usually quite late in the day. We have a categorisation, and this is probably a point for the committee meeting, right? Because we could spend several hours talking about this. Prioritisation, the risks within a state, primarily schools. And actually, that's how the money is allocated.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and the Building Safety Act, that likely to increase costs.
I'm going to say this is existing pressures to date, based on overspends to date. We're not forward projecting as yet.
Okay. Could be a big question next year.
It could be, Chair. I suppose the complexity is obviously we're in the current arrangement, so our property services are in the joint venture. So there's an expectation on us that the joint venture, as we go through annual process, but it says for the core services, part of the service stack, this is the budget that we're required to do that. So elsewhere in this, as part of inflationary pressures, would be an uplift in that budget, and that would take care of it. Now, they have, and some of this stuff, Councillor Prim was asking how to deal with it, some of this things happen already. Newport North is restructuring would be better placed than look at some of these things for us. So they would pick that up at some point in the future. Doubtedly that will become a point where actually that's swamping other work that they're able to do, and therefore they will come back with a pressure for us. It won't be more, but that's going to be the last community. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions on those three sort of building stuff, if you like, if I can describe it that way? Okay, and then the other two is the Welsh Translation Service and the Kingsway rent reduction.
So the Welsh language translation, some similarities here, in as much as Welsh language translation already cost this much. There was a reserve in place, so there was an annual overspend drawing down on that reserve, which is now exhausted. The actual additional spend exceeds this amount. We are also looking at automation and how we can reduce Welsh language costs rather than the full spend, but where demand exceeds the budget. So we are looking at translation services, but AI is really challenging around Welsh, much easier around every other language, really challenging around Welsh. So there's still a need for a considerable amount of checking. But again, the actual pressure is higher, and we're offsetting that against some internal work.
Any questions on that, Councillor Rees?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just picking up on obviously the costs. Forgive my Welsh, some people might say it's good again that we're actually spending this amount of money on putting in Welsh services when there may be a large selection of population that won't read it. But this, as I understand it, is more from the Welsh Government perspective to introduce more Welsh throughout the region. What grants, what money do we get as an income to offset what we're spending? Or is that what you're referring to the reserves where we've just exhausted all that? So now we're picking up as a council the cost.
So it's Welsh Language Commissioner agreed standards. So this we don't really hard on Welsh, but this is about compliance. Let's be really clear about that. We don't go far above compliance, if at all. So it is about compliance and standards. There's that question. There is no annual funding to support that. I guess Wales Government could say that's not part of the budget. Makes me want to comment on that. But there are no specific grants around Welsh language. There are sometimes funding and schemes that help us with Welsh. So sometimes you might see events. We've done some great work with Colin Gwent, which was through some funding. But generally, additional funding is not for translation. And this is only for translation. Does that make sense? So grants are generally for extra things, to run an event or to bring in more Welsh language speakers, to train people, not to do compliance work. So that's that.
Yeah, it's a statutory responsibility as it was for all local authorities and some other public sector bodies, member of the public sector bodies. Newport City Council has a specific Welsh language compliance statement, which tells us the standards to which we need to deliver services. This is purely so. In education services, you have the Welsh Education Strategic Plan. Well, that's about increasing Welsh medium school placements. And Tracy said we'll do a series of training, we do a lot of staff training, encouraging people to learn through the medium of Welsh. This is purely about the translation of things that we produce, the costs associated with doing that. There isn't an easy way of doing it, because that it has to be translated to the same standard as the English. So yeah, it is what it is. And so Tracy said the true expenditure is more than that, but obviously there's seems of mitigation in place to try and manage that.
So just for clarity, then again, for any members of the public reading this 25-26 is going to cost us a budget price of 120,000. 26-27, is that just 20,000 or is that 20 plus the 120?
But if you see, we had this conversation last year. So if you see a minus figure or a plus figure in there, that's gone into or come out of the base budget. So the next year's base budget starts off at the point that 120,000 is in there. So there'll be another additional 20,000.
104,000 from 26-27.
And that's notwithstanding we could have additional batches. For any of these days, coming back.
Yeah.
Really, that money is paying for maybe 2 or 3 people to sit there and literally translate whatever we've got into the correct version in Welsh.
It's
That's too simple.
it's slightly more efficient than that.
Glad of that.
We buy in from another local authority who have a team of more translators than we can keep employed, because you need some resilience and all of that, and then be able to flex with supply and demand. But we have pushed down the cost by having our own internal translation, so we can do smaller pieces that don't need big scale work. So we have pushed down on the price of that, but very crudely, that is what it does. It is a bit more sophisticated than that. As I said, we're also looking with a regional programme at an AI solution to give us the starter often for some of the big documents that we can send to. So
Yeah, I didn't say. I suppose the example we give that. So we talk about social media posts. We have to do those in Welsh as well as English. We have our own internal translate. We can just do sort of send them like the translation cost. But things like just take something like the LDP, we would have to spend that to be translated. So there's a cost associated with doing that.
Presumably, then the Newport matters costs associated with that.
Yeah.
It's a big translation piece, isn't it? So
and you
So
can rely on one person.
yeah. So the cost saving, for example, on Newport matters probably more, because you might get some saving in or something. So
Yeah, but if it's online, so for instance, we've got information on the website, it would have to be translated as well.
yeah,
So do you know what I mean? But that is it's a legislative responsibility, so we have to do it. So
But already
speak Welsh in Wales, and they have the right to live their life through reading Welsh.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but so we're already doing a similar thing with the IT, the shared resource service there. And then we're bolting on a little bit onto the back of that.
Yeah, quite similar to that. But it's not, to be really clear, it's not new spend, it's existing spend.
Any other questions on the Welsh language translation from members? Just the Kingsway rent reduction, and I don't know if there's much to say on that.
Not really, it's a reversal, it's a credit. So previously, there was pressure there during a period when we weren't receiving rent. It's now reversing that original pressure, going into a period where we should be receiving.
Or positive.
Well done, everyone was involved in that. Well, it's been those 2 times.
So congratulations.
We've got a really good relationship with the new leaseholder.
Yeah, really good for Christmas.
No Santa's problem.
No, not sure.
That
Just
was
generally.
Collins check. It was just the same
They
thing.
have
as
one
you
of all, you
said.
see.
Charity used to do it, didn't they?
I
Same
don't,
way.
I don't know.
They did have real reindeers in on the 21st.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
they?
They did.
Really?
Yeah, I took the my niece's kids in Christmas Eve expected it's been a dress up instead.
Isn't it interesting?
There you go.
Well, there's an income stream.
I think that's it on people policy transformation.
Commission charges for people policy transformation.
That'd be Mike. Oh, sorry, is there one specific to this one? Sorry, I apologise. I thought they were. Sorry, I thought they were all road standards. Do apologise.
I'm not sure if there's anything in particular.
So Appendix 6, page 8 of the separate document that Neil kindly shared with us. So there was most things were staying the same.
Yeah.
Some 4% ones on the autumn. It was largely street naming, I think.
Does it not beg the question why we haven't put an increase in sort of hiring of committee rooms or hiring out equipment hire, etc.?
I think I know the answer to this, so if you want to answer.
Obviously, 0%. So
But what I was going to say is obviously, I think it's probably what we previously. So we've got a 5-year plan in place now for the centre to stabilise it. Given the current condition, we've done, we think we can generate more income increasing those figures. I think that's the general position with it. Obviously, that would change over time. We look at other options.
Yes, it's very limited currently, and there are extra limitations with closure and the work that we're going to be doing. You know, you've seen the press about the Civic Centre tower for that period alone. You have to close the front of the building probably completely because of the risks. There's lots of challenges next year, and something. Although probably to the positive.
So basically, we're fortunate to get what we get.
Yes, and it's challenging. You know, if parts of the civic are not fully compliant accessibility wise, you know, all of that. This is a great room. It's the great room. It's in the council chamber.
And the street naming ones are 4%. Same as the council tax. Starting point being the same as the council tax proposal.
So I kind of hardwired into it sort of our base assumptions for all the sort of fees and charges. It is a 4% increase, inflation, but also we've got to take into most of our inflation and staff costs.
Yeah, right. So
so unless anybody's got a compelling case for moving from the 4%, it goes through the full.
So they've gone median to original 4% assumption as opposed right. Any other questions from the committee on fees and charges for people policy and transformation? No, fantastic. Apologies, I missed that one off. I thought they were all from Mike. Thank you very much.
Fees and charges for the standards then.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward. Mike hasn't got any other proposals apart from increases in fees and charges. So I'm not sure if there's anything you want to introduce on that. Might go to store open questions. Entirely to you.
I don't think so. No, we have made a saving around the removal of the car.
That was on the original budget in November, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was consulting price.
Yeah.
Cabinet budget.
Yeah, in terms of the fees and charges, I mean, as Reece has just said, the base assumption is 4%. What we've done with regard to the discretionary fees in the registrar's services, we've just had a look at them as well, just to make sure that they are actually covering the costs of what it costs us to deliver that service, and that's why there's a bit of variation across the board there. So that's that's what's behind all of them. I mean, I don't know whether the committee have got any questions about any specific lines on that.
Yeah, any questions from anybody on any of the fees and charges?
Now, to be compared to the local authorities, is there much of a comparison of this with the fees that we charge to get married in Newport be very similar to what they charge in Cumbrae? In Torvine?
They're not the same, and I don't have the precise breakdown in front of me. I mean, what I would say is that you've got to, if you're going to do that, you've got to make sure that you're comparing like with like. So what we've got as a wedding venue is a lot nicer than what, for example, Torvine and Caerphilly have. We've got the Mansion House, which is obviously set where it's set. It's got the stained glass window that the couple like to have their photos taken with. It's got the unique gardens and so on. So we are providing a slightly more premium offering than some of the councils are. You know, not to denigrate those. I don't think we're the most expensive, and I don't think we're the cheapest, but get some more information, obviously. But as I say, I think I would be wary of just putting them side by side.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Not necessarily comparing like with like.
But yeah, it's to say competitive we could be, because if if the price did impact on people a few miles up the road to get married, or for certain services that are available, you don't have to get married in Newport View, so it's trying to make it as competitive as possible. I've not got married for a long time, fortunately.
Well, I mean, you don't have to get married in the street.
No.
You know, that's the thing. People use venues right away, across everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not just competing with other local authorities. You're competing with the private sector. And I mean, again, I haven't got a breakdown in front of me, but I'll be fairly confident that we're competitive in that regard, because we're not turning a profit in the same way that the private sector is. And I'd like to say, I think for the setting that we've got, I think what we
say £56 per shop with simple ceremony. It does seem cheap, actually. I think of what's involved with that. Obviously, once you registrar, it does you registers. Do you get your certificate as well?
That £56 fee, I believe, is a statutory fee. That's the basic statutory fee for a statutory no frills wedding. So that's where a couple can come along and say, I just want to get married. I don't want any pomp and ceremony with it. It's not done in the ceremony room. It's done in an office upstairs in the Mansion House. And it's just the couple. I think they can bring 2 witnesses. They have the appointment with the wed registrar. They get the certificate, and it doesn't take very long. So it's the most stripped back service, and that's offered because it's a legal requirement that we have to offer. And I think that the government dictates the fee for that.
Like your MOT.
Yeah. It's also, so people who've been married abroad just use that service to kind of ratify in the UK afterwards.
Sorry, no, you carry on.
All of the last, I think I might have asked this last time, but I can't recall it a long time ago. Ceremony charges, we've got discretionary in there. Whose discretion?
So discretion, there's 2 sorts of services. There's services that the law says that the council has to provide, and there's services that the council may provide but doesn't have to. So it's at the council's discretion to provide those services. All we have to provide is a basic wedding ceremony offering like what I've just described. We don't. We provide these additional services at our discretion, and the council at its discretion can set the charges for them.
So not discretionary as much as we decide whether we charge or we don't charge. I'm reading that discretionary.
Yeah, well, we've got a discretion as to whether to provide the service. To provide the service, and we've got a discretion as to what to charge for it.
But I suppose, as Mike said, a lot of it, why these disappeared and percentage increases, basically stripped it back to how much does it cost us to provide the service. So that's why they changed that. So cost us. Otherwise, that would be, if it was we're not going to charge for this, then it'd obviously be a pressure or something. It's not paid.
Yeah, it makes sense for the starting point, particularly if it's a discretionary service, doesn't it? If it's discretionary service, should cover it.
Yeah, that's absolutely your starting point.
Yeah.
We've got costs associated with weddings. Are they burial costs? Has anything changed with what we charge for funerals?
We don't do funerals. levels of burials would be dealt with by environmental public protection of the ceremonies.
It was in Sylvia's, I don't think there was an increase in charges from memory, but don't quote me on that, but it was in the kind of papers and everything originally.
You could, if the committee wants to, that's their service to provide it.
It was just in the news this week.
We picked it up as well, because there was the additional stuff for the park benches and stuff that we picked up earlier. Sorry, the 70 benches, and we did all the fees and charges of that time, yeah. So I can't remember the details, sorry, but we can get it.
I was just curious.
Any other questions? Straightforward, Mike?
Thank you very much.
There we go. We could wrap up the recommendations. I don't think we need officers to stay. You're welcome to stay if you want to.
I think there was a couple in there. I've done just.
Yeah, if you have it now, please. Heads to this, you can stay or go. It's fine. What do you need to get?
No, it's fine. It was to do with. It was technical around. It's a several amount.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, and probably Neil's going to remind me of the recommendations right before.
The efficiency savings within revenue benefits. With a general consensus from the committee, we can note to focus on the service rather than take the savings, the resources can be reallocated to address their issues. Is that what the committee would like to feedback, or is it what the comments or recommendations?
So can you read that again?
Recommend to firstly focus on improving the service, and rather than take the savings, the resources could be reallocated to address other issues.
That was 6,000.
Yeah, for 375,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is everybody happy that that's a recommendation we want to make as a committee?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy with that.
Yeah, fantastic. If you send your records,
I think what you said in there was that you can still undertake that efficiency change.
Yeah.
But then reallocate the resource.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking. So I need to agree with that. Yeah.
For the transactional cost savings, recommend to rephrase the current summary in the proposal to the state that people can still visit the face-to-face centre in order to get the forms.
Yes.
And the comment from yourself, Councillor, can recommend that a comprehensive list of locations where members of the public can obtain forms to be created and publicised.
Yeah.
Is there any other comments, recommendations the committee would like to make in regards to that proposal?
Just fine, what you're looking at, yeah. Yeah. No, I think I was it. Yeah, it was only the two, so yeah. We fire teams, gravel transfer, out by who's done. Budget meeting, so yeah, you put that as a.
No, we've made a comment, Chair, it's important to listen carefully to the feedback from customers and from the proposal, and so you mentioned the form strategy from that.
Yeah, I mean, the decision needs to link to the wider comms communication strategy, doesn't it? How do we communicate with our residents, really? Because if you take that communication channel away, you've got to think about how you communicate with people. So
Was there any other comments, recommendations the committee would like to make in regards to this proposal?
Well, when you put that aside, it's an opinion, not really a recommendation. I'd like to see it improved and expanded in terms of, but I think comments made, I can see by the opposition to the party I represent, could see a Newport man as political aside. It previously, and I do think that's changed. So I think now we're discussing its future. I think you need to look at it in the merits of the past few months and the improvements that have been made. I think there's been significant improvements in the template, the colours, the design of the information, which is more important. I think a lot of people were frustrated when you formatted in previous years because it was a promotional magazine. Yeah, can't steer away from that. But I think that if we carry on as we're doing, you might see that people are reading it and appreciating it a bit more. That's a very, controversial statement to make. But I think that that's the feedback I got from people who read it. It was just your party's rag.
Yeah.
And that, and people didn't read it, I think, because now the information is a bit more general. It's a bit more specific to residents' needs and what they need. And so I think in a year's time, it might be appreciated a little bit more how it has been passed.
Yeah, so I think the recommendation to sort of carefully listen to the public's feedback is probably as far as we can
And cross-party.
go with it. Yeah, well, everybody will sort of feed into the consultation anyway, sort of individually. I mean, that's probably about as far as we can go on a recommendation. Unless you want to make a proposal that we make a recommendation.
Well, my proposal would be to
and then get a second
before I would see if the readership. This is how, again, it's how you recall whether people read it and whether they appreciate it. So we, maybe a copy of Newport Matters is we need your feedback, and if there's some kind of consultation, an honest consultation, what do you like about it? If we haven't gone out to the public and asked them, what do you want to see in Newport Matters? What do you want to see covered? It's the local population's information, free information magazine.
My worry is
should be geared around them and not us.
This consultation, is a wider budget consultation. I'm worried it will get lost in that. So I take your point about actually asking us, like we talked about the libraries last time, and actually, have you gone into the libraries and talked to people about the impact of stuff? This is all, I made a flippant remark earlier tonight about Newport Matters actually asked, put it in there and asked, because if nobody responds, nobody reads it, might be the take from it, but it's probably a point sort of reasonably well made. But I'm happy, if somebody wants to propose an alternative recommendation and we go through different, no problem at all.
I think for the figures that we're discussing, it's not a massive thing. Personally, I know that we're in the pressure to save money, and this is, again, it's one of those niceties, not necessities. But I think if we lost it, we've got nothing to replace it with.
So you can have more than one recommendation on the card.
Yeah.
You could have a subsequent, which is going to be felt that a specific, rather than making a budget decision, you can have a specific consultation on the future.
I would be comfortable with it.
Yeah, I do think, Chair, your point about it, that it's this demise will get lost in the overall budget consultations. I think you're quite right. I do think, as you said, it ought to be something as a standalone. Yeah, it's not in the grand sense, it's not a significant sum of money, but it is as a resource and as a perception. Public, well, it's just another thing that we're not getting, and I don't hear anything from, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good recommendation.
Yeah, let's go with that. So first recommendation stands by itself, careful, and then carefully listening to feedback, and should we felt that specific consultation on a future Newport Matters should be carried out more widely over the coming 12 months.
You probably want to say a budget decision on it shouldn't be taken at this stage. Yeah, that's what the committee feels. What we do, actually in the same consultation specifically on the future. You could wrap that in something more broad, give you around how do you want me to communicate with?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, and that links to the wider communication strategy point, isn't it? Yeah. It's interesting because engagement, we've got the engagement strategy, which was sort of updated last year. It doesn't sort of pick up on that comms bit in that much detail, does it? It's slightly different, isn't it?
It is, because that obviously that's in that something was put in place as a result of the Local Government Elections Act.
Yeah.
Required of an engagement strategy, and that relates more to how residents get involved in the democratic process and get the voices heard through that, which things like a petition strategy and policies, things like that. I suppose this is the other.
It's the other side of how does your comms inform your engagement, isn't it? 'Cause if you're not reaching anybody, they're not going to engage with you. So they are important.
And I think within, it's probably not for a discussion, but I think within people matters is one thing, and their websites, social media, things like that.
Yeah.
You know, how do you want to have these messages? How do you want to engage? How do you want to be communicated? So I think there's something, you know, we could look at something for a bit more. That in a more broad way.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, it might be something to think about as you look at the full work programme and communication strategy. That'd be kind of our remit, I suppose.
Yes, it takes this area.
Yeah.
Was there any other comments, recommendations in regards to any of the investment or pressures, or content with what they've seen?
No, I think ours is pleasing to see consideration and to bring a lot more services back where we feel it makes significant savings long term. So again, service, etc. It's good to see that we're thinking that way. Because it also our own staff that we employ with long-term skills and qualifications. Yeah.
So recommendations. Just not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Recommendations done. Minutes of the last meeting now, or do you want to do your report, please?
That's right. Thanks, Shirley.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah.
Our next meeting will be on Monday, the 17th of February. We'll discuss the Highways Asset Management Plan and the cultural strategy.
Yeah.
These Brooks. During this time, Sam and I are link head to service to discuss topics which to be added onto the draft forward work programme, which are regularly added, such as the mid-event-year reviews, budget, etc. And would also ask if there's any particular topics that they want to bring. And then our next committee meeting will present our draft forward work programme and suggestions from the committee on what they would like to see being discussed as well.
Yeah, I know we're not full in terms of numbers today, but I encourage you all to think about what is it that the committee want to get LT into. We've got a really wide remit here as a committee in terms of sort of areas of the council that we can drill down and do a deep dive into. And the whole point is, the scrutiny element. So we do a lot of work on performance. So we do a lot of review and performance with mid-year service reviews and end-year service reviews. And then the other forward work programmes, in my eyes, are the things that the council is required to consult on, like the LDP and the Highways Asset Management Plan and the cultural plan. But actually, it should be us that's driving the agenda, the bits that come up that we think would be really good to unpick, that the information is there, like the common strategy, like what we talked about last time on the school transport stuff, and anything else that you think actually, we ought to have a really good look at this. One of the things that came up last year as part of the budget proposals was the bus station charges, which I talked about going on to a forward work programme, and nobody really knew anything about it, and I think they were reluctant to bring it. That to me then is an ideal thing to kind of actually have a look at and scrutinise it, and make somebody understand it properly. The only person that could answer those questions in it was Paul, who's obviously been here quite some time and had the benefit of a fair year's experience. There were people in that same department, in my view, that kind of didn't have a clue on the questions that they were answering. I don't know if you remember, we were in the sort of main chamber.
Yes, right.
So there will be a number of things, and I think that we ought to drive the agenda, and our agenda gets filled in very quickly with performance stuff and what the officers want us to look at. What do we want to look at as members?
Well, we
To
see
see,
that in
yeah.
the last meeting, they go out to notes for the reserves.
Yeah.
For a more complex understanding of what we're looking at with reserves. Again, so we can feed it back out
It
to
is
some
helpful,
people.
yes. It's relatively new to the council, and so they've got to backfill an awful lot because they've not got that experience to know the range of topics we're talking about. So that was the reserves for the day was
Yeah,
really interesting because I had a completely different concept of the reserves to what was actually explained. I thought it was just a big saving the king we choose not to spend, but it's not. Far from it.
no,
Yeah,
there's only about
It's
£6
explained to
million
you,
quid anyway.
and the point that you made there is how you spend money, whether you borrow it now and spend it for what you need now.
Yeah.
Or that you just save up for it. It can be done now in a few years. Again, different ways and means, but I think if we all understand how the systems work and the backlinks to them, then it's easier when we're answering residents' complaints and queries.
Yeah.
You know, that was something I know.
We did recommend a full councillor webinar on reserves. My gut take would be let's see what that does before we did a deep dive into it. But just in case it's repetitive, but you know, it's your committee, not mine. So if you want to actually put that as a forward item, then that's fine. So
I think, I know that it's a few missing days. But we do seem a bit light on numbers on this committee in comparison to others. Now, it means that I can ask a lot more questions. And
Yeah.
still a lot more. But in comparison to other committees, there were a lot more people involved when we turned up. You know, there was 6 or 7 with, you know, with as many online. Are we missing positions on this committee, or
We're just waiting to get a replacement for Councillor Bright.
it's only one we're missing. So we've got quite a few absent today. Councillor Cleverly, Councillor Thomas, Councillor Horton, Councillor Linton. That's it. Yeah.
So when Councillor Bright, there's 5 people there.
Yeah.
So
That's fine.
7, 8, 9, and yourself 10.
Yeah.
So in regards to the reserves query, it's more of a like knowledge thing, rather than a performance measure, then we can look at maybe do it like an all-member seminar.
yeah, no, but I've been reading on the reserves before. The questions why they spend so much money and don't spend it. There's obvious things that you're spending. It's not that's not savings. It's just money.
No, it's not. Yeah, I've done a lot of sort of head scratching on kind of budgets and reserves and everything to try and get the alternative budgets in the last couple of years. And you know, local authority finance is quite a fine art, really, and it takes a lot of understanding. You know, I do budgets all day at work. You know, I'm a director, manage the department. I do budgets all the time, and local authority finance is just like on a different scale altogether. Completely is, you know, and it does take a lot of getting your head around. And I still probably only understand 40-50% of that, I reckon. So you know, it's it does. It's a lot, a big commitment.
We have taken it as an action as well.
Yeah.
The post, so we get a process of budget.
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, so let's see what the training webinar comes up with. And then, you know, I guess the training webinar might inform us if we think there are any areas that we ought to be scrutinising. That, you know, so yeah, that will be my recommendation. Let's take that tack first. But yeah, if we can come up with that as the next forward work programme, to really think about those areas. Can you note those 3 that we mentioned today, don't we? Well, so there was the that's coming anyway. So I think the ones we wanted to look at were the school transport costs.
It was the recruitment and retention update as well, wasn't it?
We are due a recruitment and retention update, so that's an additional one. What else did I mention? There were 3 we mentioned. There was school travel costs. There was a communication strategy, and there was the bus station fees and charges. Bit of brain fog there. But we might not put all of them on next year. So we'll have to see what the sort of meeting numbers look like. If we're driving the agenda, we're getting hopefully a bit of back and forth. Okay, minutes of the last week, I think, is that it on your
Yeah,
report?
that's what I saw on this agenda. Yeah, apologies, but last week we should have discuss the minutes of the previous two meetings. And I do apologise. I resent the agenda to the committee. So this is last week's agenda, showing the previous two meetings.
Yeah, we ran significantly over last time, so we overlooked sort of the ratifying the minutes for the last 2 weeks. I've had a good look through and I'm happy with them.
Yeah,
We're happy to ratify them.
I've got no notes from them, so.
I think you should get this one, actually. I think
Yeah, wasn't that
you were
one
only
meeting?
one and the
Yes.
others, you probably won't have one. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, yeah, happy to agree that was a true record, so. That's it, meeting closed then, is it? That concludes the meeting, everybody. See you all on the 17th of February. Fantastic, thanks all. See you soon. Take care. Ciao. My button, the Teams thing off. Just have it, I wasn't later on.